Yellow ribbons. Florida days are not only humid, they're extremely bright. They don't call it the sunshine state for nothing. I always wondered why the sun was so bright. It helps keep my memories so vivid. David's daddy left us when he was 9. He couldn't handle the strain of being a father and providing for a family. Between his drinking and his hopelessness, he never seemed to hold down a job. It was almost better that we were left without him. It was one less problem to deal with and one less mouth to feed. At least with him gone, I could hear myself think. We lived in the river city of Jacksonville. It was where I was born and raised and never thought to venture beyond the city limits. I barely drove anyway, so David and I lived together in peace. My boy played mostly alone, and I wondered if he was happy, if his daddy leaving him ever bothered him, or at least if he felt his father's absence. If he did, he never said much of anything to me. Living in the country was too isolating for my boy, so we moved closer to town. I chose a new trailer park in Orange Park. It was what I could afford, and there were plenty of young parents getting their start who had children for David to play with and grow up with. I had a job cleaning at the hotel down the road. Each weekday I drove my old Ford back and forth from work and home. Then I waited for David's bus to drop him off at the entrance of the trailer park, and together we'd walk home, and I'd make him supper and help him with his schoolwork. On Sundays, we'd go to church and commune with our neighbors. We led a simple, steady, and dependable life. I was proud of what I could give to my boy. I couldn't give him much, but I gave him all of my love and attention. David started dating and eventually graduated from high school. He wasn't much of a scholar, but he liked people and wanted to see the world. He thought he'd venture off beyond the trailer park pines and head over to the recruiter's office. I thought he'd join the Navy like so many other local boys, but he joined the Marines instead. After basic training, my boy was off to see the world. The Marines turned a local boy into a man of the world. He had come home a changed man from his deployment. David was tall, muscular, and serious. This time he had a somber tone and didn't talk as much as he used to. I worried if David had seen some things he wasn't supposed to see, or if he took on the melancholia like his daddy had. I didn't know how to ask my son if he was feeling all right. I didn't have the vocabulary or the skills to uncover how he felt. For the first time as a mother, I did not know how to comfort my son or to take away his burdens. When children are small, all we have to do is provide for them and keep life easy. But when they grow and feel and think on their own, we don't know how to navigate the landscape of their mind or the problems weighing on their hearts. Eventually, he told me he was being deployed to the Middle East and didn't know when he'd be coming home. I don't know if he was worried about me being back home without him, or if he was scared of what he was going to experience. Either way, both seemed to occupy my mind. During the day, while I was at work, he went out with his friends and fellow soldiers. He went to the beach, swam in the creeks, and passed the time until I'd come home to make him his favorite dinners. Those dinners were all we had. David was all I had. Then the day came when David had to report for duty. I practically held my breath when I hugged him goodbye. Holding my son in my arms as we stood on the front porch, I tried to hold on to every detail of his smell, his warmth, the sound of his voice, and the feel of his embrace. As David got into the taxi to go to the base, he paused and looked at me. He smiled and said,
"Love you, Mama."
"Love you too, baby," I said, holding back tears. Sending my boy off to the Middle East was hard. It's always hard for a mama to let go of her babies, but this time felt different. I didn't know when I'd see my baby again. There were days I wept. When I was cleaning the hotel rooms, I cried silently. I wiped away my tears and held a smile in the break room. I enjoyed cleaning by myself because it gave me time to think about my boy and all the memories we shared. Weeks turned into months. He wrote me letters every chance he got. He didn't call me much, but when he did, I rejoiced. Some nights, when watching TV, I'd open up his letters just to feel like I had heard from him again. I'd like to pretend that the letters were brand new and that I was hearing fresh news from my boy. Eventually, the phone calls and the letters stopped. I figured he must be somewhere that mail couldn't be delivered or some place top secret, like a military base in the desert. There wasn't any news about him that I could report to the church. I felt adrift in a state of unknowing. I prayed for my boy night and day, asking that God be with him and keep him safe. I hoped that if my boy felt unsafe, that he could just think of his mama and feel like I was there with him again. Then one day I got a visitor at my door. I opened the screen door and found two servicemen on my front porch. They were in uniform and held stoic faces. When I told them hello and welcomed them in, they asked me to sit down. There wasn't any time to fetch them some sweet tea. They moved their hands to the couch as if they were commanding me to sit. I sat down nervous. My heart was in my throat and my stomach tightened. I took a deep breath, trying to fake a smile. They sat down and tried to make themselves comfortable, but they were on a mission to disseminate information that would change my life. They said that my son was missing in action. They explained he was on a mission and disappeared at night. Nobody knew where he went and if he was alive or dead. Until then, they recommended hoping that he was a prisoner of war and that they'd find him. I didn't know which was worse, that my son was a prisoner of war or dead. I couldn't take the thought of someone mishandling my son, torturing him and terrifying him. I tried not to think about it, but it scared me so much that I cried. The soldiers reached out to me and held my hands. One put his arm around me in sympathy. "What do I do now?" I asked. One told me to hold on to the idea that he's alive and well. He said not to let go of that vision, no matter what doubts may try to creep in. He said,
"Ma'am, if you can hold on to that idea, one day, one way or another, you'll reunite with him."
After I said goodbye to the soldiers, they left me in my trailer to think about my son. I watered my garden, cooked and cleaned. I made doilies and read magazines. Anything to keep me from worrying and letting the darkness in. One day I went to the fabric store and saw a roll of yellow ribbon. I decided I would make a yellow ribbon and tie it around the tree in my yard. So I went home and fashioned a big yellow ribbon with plenty of bows. I tied it around that tree, and I decided that when I looked at this ribbon, I would imagine my son safe at home with me. Each time, I would change the place he would be. Perhaps this time he was in his room taking a nap. Next time he'd be at the beach with his friends. Another time, he'd be in the kitchen stealing a taste of supper before it was done. I decided that if he couldn't be with me, then he'd be somewhere good. The months passed into years. The Marines eventually declared David dead. They sent me a folded flag, but I wouldn't accept what they believed to be true, that my son was never coming home, that this baby boy that I had raised on my own would never live a life of his own, to buy a home, to have a family and bury his mama. This is where the Marines and I disagreed. There were days where I felt the doom and gloom of loneliness. My job no longer satisfied me. Going to church no longer fixed the pain. I just couldn't find pleasure in living anymore. Eventually, nothing could make me happy. I thought I could just die, and I asked the Lord to take me. In my hopelessness, I felt angry. I didn't know who to blame for my son's death. Was it some Arab in the desert? Was it the Marines who put him in the line of danger? Was it the president and the politicians who would never know my son or care that someone had lost him? I was beside myself in an encroaching grief. One day, when I felt like I couldn't take it anymore, I laid down and hoped that I would die. I didn't have any drugs or alcohol or a gun to kill myself, but I thought that this depression would consume me. I laid in my bed and stared blankly at the ceiling. I just couldn't move. The only strength I had left was to cry myself to sleep. And then, that's when I had the dream. I had found my boy. He was as a child once again, asleep in the tall grass. He was alone, but he wasn't afraid. I touched him and felt him once again, and he woke up and instantly recognized me. Like the last day I had seen him, he wrapped his arms around me and held me tight, so tight I could smell him. He said, "Mama, why you crying?" "Because I miss you, son, so much it hurts." I explained, heaving as I spoke. "I'm all right, Mama. I'm right here with you now. Don't cry, Mama." But I couldn't stop crying. I was letting go of all that I held in. He looked at me and said, "Don't be sad anymore. I'm with you. As long as you can feel me, I'll be with you, okay? I promise, son, I promise." I continued to weep. I opened my eyes and continued to purge the emotions that kept me so sad inside. It's true, I didn't know what to do with myself now that my son is gone. He was the light of my life. I built my world around him and everything that I did. He gave me a sense of purpose, direction, and strength. Without him, I felt powerless, alone, and afraid. As parents, we stop caring for our own well-being. We pour everything we got into our babies because they demand so much from us, but in all the best possible ways. Without my son, I would not have found the strength to carry on as a single mother. I didn't need a man, but I needed my son. I didn't know what he meant to feel him with me. For so long, I felt him so far away. I imagined him to be anywhere but next to me. I had to sit quietly with myself to figure out his cryptic message. Then one day I changed my line of work. I decided I needed more joy in my life. I looked in the newspaper and found an ad for a daycare. They needed help, and I thought I'd apply. At first, taking care of all the babies overwhelmed me, not because of how much work it takes to care for small and growing children, but all the memories that seemed to flood my mind. The hugs and kisses, holding hands and feeding snacks. Sometimes the love was too much to bear. With time and patience, I eventually felt more and more comfortable seeing mamas and daddies pick up their babies. The children brought me laughter, fun, and play. Eventually, I felt the way I did when my son was alive. I could feel David once again. After that, I didn't feel sad anymore. When I needed my son, I felt my son was with me. I prayed and prayed for him to hear me. I asked my son to give me his presence whenever I needed him. He never failed to come home, and I never took down that yellow ribbon. A soldier may be gone, but they're not forgotten. David now lives inside my heart.